Odion, the tariff covers a 10-year period, of course, and the expectation is that the price will start reducing from 2018 upward to 2024. Isn't that far off?
Sorry, I didn't get that. Could you take that again?
All right, the tariff, the new tariff hike is supposed to be have a lifespan of around 10 years, and it's expected that it's going to reduce gradually, but it's going to be from 2018 upward, maybe to 2024. It's going to be a gradual reduction process, but from 2018. Now, is it not too far away? This is 2016, meaning that Nigerians are still going to be paying this new tariff till at least 2, 3, 4 years, then upward, knowing that things might not be better for that time?
Yeah. The way the tariff model works, the first 2 years you pay high tariffs, and as the power sector improves, the tariffs start going down. So it's called sculpting. The tariffs have been sculpted over a 10-year period to cover the cost of the sector over a 10-year period. Now, in 2018, we expect certain things to have happened. Power generation would have hit a certain level. The ability of the transmission grid to evacuate that power from the generation stations would have improved. And lastly, the ability of the distribution companies, DISCOs, to reticulate that power to us in a manner that we can use would have also improved. Keep in mind, investments and the results, they have a lag time. So the investments need to happen today. Unfortunately, the very high capital expenditure is required to be made today. And in the next 2, 3 years, we expect to see the effect of that capital expenditure across the entire value chain. So it's a tough one to wait for 2 years to see improvements, but I don't think we have to wait for 2 years. Like the minister said, before the end of this year, you would see an additional 2,000 megawatts in the grid. I know a number of distribution companies that are going around metering their customers and are now taking up very aggressive metering plans to make sure that their customers have meters. I know a number of Nigerian banks that are now, because of the new tariffs, they are now going to start lending to the operators to implement their plans. So I don't think we may need to wait till 2018 to see improvements. You would see improvements hopefully as we progress and sometime in this year. But the way the tariff model is sculpted, at some point in 2018, tariffs start to reduce as more efficiency is built into the system.
Okay, so the problem of huge estimated bills and, of course, incessant power outages, how soon do you think this new tariff is going to help stop that? Because not all Nigerians have prepaid meters, like we all know.
Yes, I think NERC has come up with a methodology for estimated billing, which they need strong enforcement and regulation will address. The distribution companies have been giving matching orders to meter their customers. The second thing is that the distribution companies, I think NERC came out with an order that if you do not have a meter, at some point, you shouldn't pay fixed charge. Luckily, they've taken away fixed charge and have now converted it to energy charges. I would expect NERC to go full force, implement sanctions against distribution companies who do not meter their customers, number one, within the time frame they've set, and number two, who go outside of the estimated billing methodology to meter their customers. But in all, I expect that with the right investments today, supported by the right tariffs, the issue of estimated billing will be a thing of the past in the next, at the worst case, before the end of 2017. We should be done with estimated billing and all the challenges that come with that.
All right. Earlier, we were talking about some of the challenges the DISCOs are facing across the country, and we can't help but talk about pipeline vandalism. The recent one was the Escravos vandalization, the vandalization of the Escravos pipelines, which somehow affect gas distribution to these companies to generate power for Nigerians still. The challenge is really, how will this new tariff stop it? Because it means that vandals are still out there to do what they usually do, and they do not get arrested easily.
Well, first of all, the new tariffs will not address the act of vandalism. The act of vandalism is sabotage, and there's no economic model that will solve that except to placate the boys in the Niger Delta. So new tariffs do not rule out the fact that there might be vandalization of the pipelines. But in terms of how the new tariffs improve power generation, we expect that with the new gas prices that gas producers are now selling their gas, a number of gas producers will go and start doing the necessary exploration and development of gas fields to produce more gas. To get to about 7,000 or 8,000 megawatts, we need an additional 1.5 billion cubic feet of gas into the system. So we expect that the new gas price of $2.50 and a new transportation price of 80 cents would spur gas producers and gas transportation companies to make the investments in producing the gas and also build the pipelines that will supply more gas to our power plants. Currently, it's important to understand how the MITO is structured, the tariff we pay. It factors the gas price, it factors the cost of generation, the cost of transmission, and also the cost of distributing the power to us.
Okay, so what about...
So at any point in time... Please carry on.
No, you can finish your point. I thought you were through.
Yes. So at any point in time, if anybody within the value chain is not getting the right investment on the right returns on their investment, there's a break in that chain, and we hopefully the new tariff addresses that scenario.
Okay, now customers will no longer pay fixed charges as we hear. But so what's the difference now between the fixed charges they will no longer will be paying and the new one, energy charges? What's the difference?
It's simple. It's a case of consumption. You pay what you consume. But let me make a case for fixed charges first of all. If you look around you, you'd see all the lines going around you. You see the poles, you see the transformers. You would see the what we call the high tension lines, which is your 132 kV, 330 kV. They go around the country. And then if you maybe go further, if you follow them, you see that they end up at generation plants. The electricity sector has a very huge fixed cost. So it's important that that cost is recovered from tariffs. What NERC has simply done is to translate that fixed cost, which they charged us every month, whether we got power or not, into energy charges. And what that means is that if you have electricity, you will pay both for the kilowatts you use and also the amount of fixed cost for that amount of time you had power. So if you don't have light for 1 week, there's no way you're going to pay for that fixed cost. So, and it's good for the sector because what it does is that it incentivizes the distribution company, the generation company, the transmission company to make sure you have light most of the time. Because if you don't have light most of the time, they are unable to recover their fixed costs over all these equipment and assets that they have spread out across the nation. So it's a good strategy. If I have light, I pay fixed charge. If I don't have light, I do not pay fixed charge. And somebody down the value chain loses, and that's his business because he was not efficient. So it's a win-win for the customer in the end.
Okay, so what do you think about the power model Nigeria uses at the moment? GENCOs are under the government while Manitoba handles transmission, which are of course DISCOs. Why not total privatization?
Well, the GENCOs are in private hands. The distribution companies are in private hands. Manitoba is with the government, but under a management contract with Manitoba Hydro, which is a Canadian firm. It's a model that you see everywhere. Your question is why not a total privatization? Unfortunately, the transmission is a natural monopoly, and in some in a lot of countries, it's regarded as a national asset, security asset. So an outright privatization of the transmission grid may not work. But here's what I think should happen. There should be some level of concessioning of the grid. So you concession certain areas of the grid, particularly new transmission lines that need to be built over time. But it's a concession, is not an outright ownership, as opposed to what we have in the discos and the generation. So you have private sector coming in to run these transmission lines for a certain period. They make the investments to improve the transmission lines and recover their money, and then government takes over the asset again. So that's the privatization model that I think the new government will probably head towards.
Would probably head towards, but at the long run should definitely benefit Nigeria if it's so. But concessioning of the grid, if the Nigerian government does that, will help the government, right, in saving some money, while the private companies are the ones that maintain the facilities for the period of time, right?
Definitely, but the main reason with your concession is because you need new transmission lines to be built. Our transmission grid can only evacuate about 6,000 megawatts. Keep in mind, total generation capacity we have today in country is about 14,000 megawatts. So if for any instance, gas supply improves, distribution companies can take more power, you would have a challenge with the transmission, being able to take all that 14,000 megawatts and distributing it across Nigeria. So new transmission lines have to be built. New injection substations have to be built. That's the reason why you're going to have to, the government needs to consider concessioning these new transmission lines so that the investors can build them, manage them, operate them, and recover their cost.
All right.
So in the end, it's a win-win for the governments.
Okay. Ojan, stay with me. We want to take another Vox Pop. We asked residents in Port Harcourt, Rivers State, what they think of the privatization. Would power management be better in the hands of private sector operators, as they have been so far, or government?
Private sector should manage that because, for example, if you give it to government, a lot of government officials can never manage it because of political issue that will be brought into it.
Government cannot manage well this tariff issue, and I suggest that individuals should run that project.
Private sector always is better than government, because government establishments and institutions it belongs to nobody, because of the way Nigerian behaves. But then look at communication now. Before you call your relation abroad, you will go at night and sit down for 2 or 3 days. But now, just pick your phone, you call them and get what you want. Therefore, if they will just give it to the right private people.
I cannot say the private sector or the government, but whosoever that the government choose to manage, the people should apply the fear of God. It's only by the fear of God we are going to lead this nation well.
I think the private sector can manage it well if they can give equivalent services to equivalent money that has been spent on electricity. If the light is there, if the private sector manage it well, if the light is there, people will be ready to pay. But if the light is not there, how will we be paying for what you don't consume?
Government can even do it better. All it requires is commitment. Commitment. And pay them well. Look at Shell. Everybody go to work. Look at Chevron. Everybody goes to work. Nobody misses a work any day because they are well paid. Now, when you want to form this kind of energy companies, make sure you pay them well. And they will go out and do their jobs.
More reactions there on the power sector. Now, finally, Ojon, just quickly, why should it be a problem for Nigeria to generate gas, knowing that it's in abundance in the country and seeing that Oil companies in the Niger Delta flare gas daily.
I'll quickly address that, but let me quickly point out something from your respondents. Out of 7 of your respondents, 5 of your respondents agree that the private sector is best positioned to manage the power sector. However, for the private sector to be able to do that efficiently, they need the right economic model, which is the right tariff. So I just quickly wanted to make that point. To your question now on gas, we have so much gas in the country, we're complaining of gas, and yet we are flaring gas in the Niger Delta. Now that's an aberration that we have seen over time. But then that is because of how the oil industry in Nigeria developed. The oil was found in 1956. The focus was oil and never gas. Up until 2004, we never really had a domestic gas market, to the extent that all the gas that we had, we were thinking of how to export it. The government at that time never had the foresight to realize that we will need gas for power, we will need gas for fertilizer, we will need gas for our gas-based industries. And the domestic market has suddenly ballooned to the extent that we now have shortages in gas. But unfortunately, we're yet to see the right investments in gas, because the domestic price of gas was pretty low. Before 2012, the domestic price of gas was just $1. Meanwhile, you could export that same gas for $4. I think Henry Hub was doing about $4 then. So that's why you had all the NLNGs and the Bonny, the Brass LNG and all the rest, because the mindset was we will take Nigeria gas and export it for higher value. Again, an economic model. Luckily, we have an inverse position today. We're in an inverse position. The price of domestic gas today is more expensive than exporting the gas. And a number of gas producers are now beginning to look at how to exploit their gas resources. With the new price of gas, we expect that we'll see a turnaround of that situation, where there will be excess gas in the next couple of months and even years. So.
All right, Odion Omofoman, thank you very much for your analysis on the challenges facing the power sector in Nigeria. Omofoman is an energy consultant who spoke to us from Abuja. Thank you for your time on TVC Breakfast. We'll take a break now and be back in a moment.